We're presently without a chairman or a vice chairman, so as an emeritus, I'm going to start it anyway. Hope one of them will show up. There's just some announcements. The emergency exits are on the right and left. Restrooms are just out.
Susie's not ready.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, she's trying to. Now we're good.
All right. I'll start over. I'm going to be doing this until Joe shows up. The emergency exits to the right and left. Restrooms are out the entrance door and to the left, immediate left. Be sure to sign the attendance sheet with the email address and phone number for the planning department has cards on the table as well. Also, a copy of the resolutions that will be read tonight, along with the agenda. Please turn off your cell phones. If you have to take a call, please do it out in the hall and close the door. Please take, and that goes for conversations as well. And we'll start with the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody get meeting minutes?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
I'll have 2 for next time.
Very good. I don't see any correspondence.
None.
Dave, is there a town board update?
No report tonight. We got a
Nope.
full agenda, so I won't get in the way.
You're never in the way, Dave. Lisa,
Yep.
it's coming up.
So Keith is on vacation, so I'm stepping in for him. Your next meeting is March 25th, and you have a public hearing for Chick-fil-A restaurant located, proposed at 100-120 Eastview Mall Drive. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 5,331 square foot quick serve restaurant with a double lane drive-through and outdoor patio. Your next public hearing would be a minor subdivision for Guilfoyle Minor Subdivision on Strong Road. Applicant is requesting approval to create 2 lots from existing 86.2 acres. One lot will consist of 27.15 acres, and lot 2 will consist of 56.735, and lot 3 will have a 2.274 acre land conveyed to the existing lot and house. And then any carryovers from tonight, and then Element Hotel by Weston will be on, and then also Nikoloff subdivision preliminary over on Blazy Road.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
The first one on tonight is the Elliott Pole Barn. The public hearing, this has been closed. This is at 6415 Bortle Road. The owner is Fred Elliott. Tax map 7.00-1-30.212. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 60 by 40 foot pole barn on 4.727 acre parcel. And anybody here for that? Step right up.
Thank you for adding me to tonight's agenda. I'm Fred Elliott, and thank you also to the board for consideration based on some of our last discussions at the last meeting to waive the requirement for stamp drawings for site plan and grading plan. I appreciate that flexibility. I have provided some additional detail to the board, letter from Pooler Enterprises describing some of the grading work that was done in preparation for this. And I did include picture -5, which is essentially showing water drainage as was requested I know some detail on drainage was requested at the last meeting. I'll be happy to walk through picture 5 with a laser pointer if that helps, or if there's not any other questions, I'll open the floor, whatever.
Okay. Anything from the board, any questions? We had this on once before, but you may have further questions.
Al has none.
No? No, nothing? Okay,
Does Lobella have anything?
So we do have a little bit of follow-up commentary to our previous comment letter dated, let's see, February 13th was our initial comment letter. So we have taken a look at the supplemental information that I think the applicant is submitting in lieu of a drawing prepared by a design professional. which includes one of the diagrams that was up there showing some arrows that showed the potential surface flow, surface water drainage, should there be any, and the two buried pipes. And one of the suggestions that we might have for the applicant is we've got one of the 12-inch pipes buried here by Pooler Enterprises, another one over here, is to add some potential light stone fill at the outlet end of those pipes, just to slow down the velocity of any water, to kind of disperse any energy that might be coming out of there. It's really unknown in terms of how much water would be coming through those pipes, given that, we don't have a grading plan or any calculations of sort, but that just might help with your maintenance of your private property, so as to avoid erosion coming out of those pipes. So that is something that we did add in our updated letter that we just released today, as comment number 5. Otherwise, the applicant has addressed our comments, with the exception of we want to defer to the planning board as to whether or not you want to waive that requirement for a drawing prepared by a design professional. We have drafted, if you so choose to do that, we have drafted a resolution indicating all of the subsequent information that was provided by the applicant in finding number 9, and then also some draft conditions that we think are worthy of consideration. For example, number 2, prior to signature on any plans, that the Town of Victor Highway Superintendent be consulted about potential impacts to the Bortle Road right-of-way and any impacts to the condition of roadside drainage, and that the applicant address any stated concerns to the satisfaction of the Highway Superintendent. There is quite a bit of real estate between the front end of the barn northward to the road, so we're not expecting anything to happen there, and we certainly also don't happen to expect any adverse effects to the neighboring property owners. But there's also an ongoing condition at the end, number 3, which would require the applicant to remedy any adverse drainage conditions if there were a complaint that were specific to the installation of the barn. So that's it on my end.
Okay. Since the public hearing is closed,
Yep.
we're not having any comments, but anybody from the board have anything further?
I think with the amount of work that's gone into this since last appearance, and given the comments that Wes has produced, I think it's appropriate to not require the applicant to go for the full design professional.
I agree.
So I think we can accept what's been presented, and I think we can move forward with the
With the resolution?
conditioned approval.
Okay. I'll read the resolution. It's for the Elliott Pole Barn, 6415 Bortle Road. Today's date, application number 04SP2025. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 9 of them, and they're very long. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby waives the requirement for a site plan drawing to be prepared by a licensed design professional and accepts the applicant's submission material as sufficient for deeming a complete site plan application. Due to the submission material providing the necessary information to carefully evaluate the project and the project's anticipated effect to the environment and neighborhood. And be it further resolved that the application of Fred Elliott, site plan entitled Elliott Pole Barn, received by the planning board January 28, 2025, last revised February 24th, 2025, planning board application number 04SP2025 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to the chairman's signature on the plate plan. That no final signatures will be given on the plans until all legal and engineering fees have been paid as per fee reimbursement local law adopted November 25, 1996. Number 2, that the Town of Victor Highway Superintendent be consulted about potential impacts to the Bortle right-of-way, Bortle Road right-of-way, and any impacts to the condition of roadside drainage, and that the applicant address any stated concerns to the satisfaction of the Highway Superintendent. Number 3, that comments from the Code Enforcement Officer dated February 25, 2025 be addressed. Number 4, that comments from Labella Associates dated February 13, 2025 be addressed. Number 5, that any exterior lighting comply with Chapter 131 of the Victor Town Code and be approved by the Code Enforcement Officer. Ongoing conditions, the First one is well, it's boilerplate. Number 4, all erosion and sediment control best management practices shall be maintained until the project is complete and stabilized to protect neighboring properties. Number 3, any future drainage complaints from an adjoining property owner or from the Town of Victor Highway Superintendent received by a Town of Victor Code Enforcement Officer that are found to be a direct result of constructing the 2,400 square foot barn associated with this site plan application, and any grading or drainage infrastructure associated with the same shall be diligently remedied by the property owner of 6415 Border Road, tax map 7.00-1-30.212, to the satisfaction of the Town of Victor and/or the town's consulting engineer. Failure to do so will result in a notice of violation, and the site plan approval will be rescinded within 30 days of the filing of a formal complaint to the code enforcement officer. And number 4, that a building permit be obtained before the start of construction, and be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. Any motion on this?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
My apologies, the seat is not supposed to be empty. Yeah. Thank you, Ernie.
Okay, you're welcome.
Paul?
How you doing, Joe?
Four Winds Chimney, site plan modification and special use permit, 770 Canning Parkway. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for hearing this application tonight. As you know, we were here before the board at your last session. Generally positive comments relative to the overall site plan application. I think we addressed the comments that were raised by the board that evening. We have received written comments from town staff. I believe we've responded to the majority of them. And were received positively from the Zoning Board of Appeals last week. We did get the positive zoning interpretation. So we're here tonight to request consideration for final site plan approval and issuance of the special use permit. Joining me tonight is Dave and Anthony, owner and chief operations officer of Four Winds Chimney. So if there's any operations questions, they're here to answer any questions you have.
Okay, great, thank you. This public hearing was closed, I believe, at the last session, so I don't know, Wes, perhaps you can kind of chime in about the zoning and what changes.
So I guess my understanding, Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is that there was some question as to whether or not this was a specially permitted use in the zoning district. And so to resolve the question of that, the applicant went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, who have the ability to interpret the code and identify, an interpretation. And my understanding, based on ZBA feedback, is that the proposed use is a permitted use with a special use permit in the zoning district. So we're in the clear in terms of, issuing a special use permit if that's what you decide.
Yep, okay. Questions from the board? Al?
No
No?
questions.
Okay. Chad?
No.
Ernie?
No, well said.
Okay. As am I. That was kind of a, I don't want to say formality, but it was certainly an interpretation that needed to be had, so
Yeah,
I think that
if I could, real quick, I did grab a copy of the draft resolution and just read through. I don't have any issue with any of the comments and conditions, other than if there was some consideration from the board relative to the letter of credit requirement. I know that's pretty standard on most projects. We're not proposing any dedicated facilities. It's all private property, and I would just ask that if we could avoid the issuance of a letter of credit. It adds just another fee that a bank takes, and
Labella doesn't have a problem with
Yeah,
that.
you are correct. It's, if there's nothing being dedicated to the town, I don't believe that we have a need for that.
Just that Keith, our project coordinator or manager, had requested a letter of credit, but if the board.
Oh, do you know what specifically maybe he was looking to cover
Yeah.
by chance?
I am not positive, but it was just something that was on our notes to include a letter of credit.
Did he, yeah, I guess the question is what?
I'm not sure if it was the parking expansion.
Maybe we can modify the language there of the,
Yeah.
of the last paragraph and identify that, you know, should there be the necessity for that letter of credit through consultation, that we would work with you.
yeah, and, you know, obviously, it's always the town's position to make sure that the applicant follows through on all the conditions of the site plan approval, that the plan is built per standard. You have C of O as a lever, so just, and, you know, because that's going to just add some time to get a letter of credit, and we're trying to get them in there as quickly as we can.
Yeah, unfortunately Keith couldn't be here this evening, but unless there's someone else on the board, none of the board members had any comments, concerns?
Any comments on that one?
Nothing? No. Okay, well, perhaps, Wes, we can look at that as it is an ongoing condition, that
Yeah.
note that Paul's referring to.
I'm wondering if it might relate to any, whether it be erosion control or reestablishing any turf that would be necessary. That might be the extent of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and it's going to be so de minimis that
Yeah.
maybe we can just post a surety or some, you know, or, you know, a check that the
Yeah,
town will
I think we
hold.
can do that. It doesn't have to, I think as long as maybe there's the opportunity for a surety, I don't think it has to be a letter of credit.
Okay.
All right, would you suggest a modification to that?
I can modify that.
Okay. All right, that's it, Paul?
That's it.
Okay. All right, as I indicated, the public hearing was closed, and we do have a draft resolution here. Other than what Paul's suggested, if anyone sees anything with, as I read this through, then please chime in. So for the application 2SP 2025 and 2SU 2025, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 12 of them. And whereas the Town of Planning Board reviewed the unlisted action on March 11th, 2025, and identified no significant impacts, now therefore be it resolved that the project Four Winds Chimney site plan modification will not have a significant impact on the environment, and that a negative declaration be prepared. And be it further resolved that the application of Paul Colucci of 770 Canning Parkway LLC, site plan entitled Four Winds Chimney Site Plan Modification, drawn by Marathon Companies dated January 21st, 2025, received by the Planning Board January 21st, 2025, last revised February 21st, 2025, Planning Board application 2SP 2025 and special use permit 2SU 2025 be approved with the following conditions. Condition 1 is standard. Condition 2, that the comments in a letter dated February 13th, 2025 from Labella Associates be addressed. Number 3, that the comments from Code Enforcement Officer dated February 25th, 2025 be addressed. Number 4, that comments from Stormwater Program Manager dated February 26th, 2025 be addressed. I don't know if that was from Keith. Would be the same thing about the,
That was a stormwater maintenance agreement.
oh, okay. All right. And 5, that the comments from the Fire Marshal dated January 29th, 2025 be addressed with ongoing conditions. Numbers 1 and 2 are standard. Number 3, Wes?
Yeah, I'll add here, if determined necessary by the town's project manager, a financial surety for the project be established with the Town of Victor Town Clerk prior to a building permit being issued.
Okay. Does that work for you?
Thank you.
Okay. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So do I hear a motion on that as modified? Al moves,
Second?
and Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a great night.
Welcome to Victor. So Ernie may have mentioned that the next two items are removed from the agenda, Element and Nikoloff. Number 6, sorry, I'm missing one. Jones Pole Barn. Public hearing is open. This is 1075 Strong Road. Owner is Jeff Jones. Application 5 SP 2025. The applicant's requesting approval to construct a 32-foot by 36-foot barn with a 10 by 18 covered exterior pad on a 6.5 acre parcel. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. Yeah, just,
Name and address.
name, Jeffrey Jones, 1075 Strong Road.
Thanks.
We built our house, finished it up last November. We made some adjustments to our original site plan to move the location of the barn as well as increase the size. Site plan has been revised. Feel we've answered, I think, a majority of the questions that have been submitted. Received some questions today. I tried to get all that information back to you guys today. But we have the specs of the barn, limited lighting, couple windows, one overhead door.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the board? Al?
No, looks straightforward.
Okay. Scott?
This one's very complete.
Okay.
Thank you. I worked hard on that.
We like it when you do. Ernie?
I don't have any questions.
No questions? Okay.
Do you know what time it goes on?
Wes, any comments from Labella?
Yep, we did issue a letter today, March 11th, 2025. Very, very minor comments, no showstoppers here. Just maybe we could have the design engineer add the finished floor elevation to the proposed barn. That should be a pretty easy peasy. The lighting, I guess, looks like there's going to be a barn-style light above the overhead door. And we just noted that will need to comply with the town's lighting code.
And I sent that information over this afternoon, probably just didn't get it yet.
Yeah.
I put specs, I think we'll have a floodlight also on it, but all the same specs, same lighting that's already on the house currently. So no change there.
This is what you're.
That is it, yes. That is the lighting, yes.
The board, if anybody.
Yep, got it.
Okay, good.
And I know there was questions regarding water runoff. I'm still waiting for the final plan, site plan to be revised by Thornton Engineering that shows the floor grade, get that answer from him, as well as the actual eave height and the peak height of the barn. I know that was requested as well. I'm just waiting for him to send that over. And then I think the last question was in regard to rainwater. Will we be using rain barrels? We have multiple gardens on the property, so the plan is to reuse majority of the water outside of grading, and then any runoff additional will flow to either side of the barn. I think that was the answer to that question as well.
Okay. Anything else, Wes? That was it?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing, which is open. So if there's anyone in the room that may have comments or questions for the owner or the board? Seeing or hearing none, entertain motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Henry seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So the public hearing is closed. Unless there's any other comments from the board or questions, we do have a draft resolution for approval. Oh, I will read it. So, for the Jones Pole Barn at 1075 Strong Road, application 5 SP 2025. Whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 6 of them. Now therefore be it resolved that the application of Jeff Jones, site plan entitled Jones Pole Barn, received by the planning board on February 14th, 2025. Planning board application 5 SP 2025 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions that to be addressed prior to chairman's signature in the site plan. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. And you indicated you sent information over today, which we have. Number 3, comments from the code enforcement officer dated February 20th, 2025 be addressed. Comments from the LaBelle Associates dated March 11th, 2025 be addressed. And ongoing conditions that this site plan comply with town and Victor design and construction standards, and that the building permit be obtained prior to start of construction, and be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0.
Thank you
You're
very
all
much. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
You too. Okay, last item on the agenda, Timberview Estate subdivision, Klein Road, owner Polidori and Ferry Custom Homes. Applicant is requesting preliminary approval to develop 24 single-family home lots on 74.5 acres. The project will consist of 20 lots on a dedicated town road, and as proposed, 4 lots on a separate private lands, private drive, with access onto Klein Road. This will be the second step in a 3-step process for a major subdivision. Sketch plan was acknowledged complete September 24th, 2024. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Bob Winans. I'm an engineer with Land Tech. I'll be representing the developer tonight. Mr. Polidori is in the audience, so if there's any questions I can't answer, he can. Would you like me to run through the project? I know it was, you were all heard about it back in September, but I could run through it quickly.
I think it would be useful for those present and maybe online that you review what,
Okay.
if any, changes since then, as well as the plan in
Yeah,
general.
and there are a couple that I wanted to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
So as you mentioned, it's a 74-acre parcel. We are proposing 24 total lots, and 20 of the lots will be on a dedicated road that goes back into a cul-de-sac, and that will be all built to town standards. So also, Mr. Polidori owns 2 lots along Klein Road on the eastern side of the project, which are in the town of Farmington. And that is, currently, the plan is a little different than we showed the board back in September, as the private drive that originally was coming off our dedicated road, the main dedicated road in the project, is now looping over and coming off of Klein Road. So it's traveling through the town of Farmington before it gets to Klein Road. So, and we have talked with the town of Farmington, met with them, told them what we were doing. We submitted plans to them. It'll have to go through their approval process. We realize that complicates things a little bit, but it's still those properties that, we had originally planned up on the one area where the private drive is. So we just felt the grade was better for the road. We're able to get 10% or less slope on the road, whereas on the other way, we were up in 12 to 15% on the roadway. So, so the majority of the property right now is farmed, and if you go out there and look at it, you can see the area that's farmed is really the area that we're going to be developing, and where the houses will be. The main road will go through the center of that farmed area with, and crossing the creek that transverses the project, running from the southwest to the northeast side.
You do have a laser pointer, I think, up there if you want to point. I would choose that screen to
Do you
your
care
left.
which one I do?
I'm
Do
sorry?
you care which screen I go to?
The left, your left,
Okay.
to your left, thank you. This,
See if I can do
those
it.
online are generally directed to that screen by the camera.
Okay.
So,
So the channel that's flows through the property with the hedgerow around it is right there. And so really, the whole area here is all farmed right now, all open. There's a heavily treed area in the back, about 10 acres. It'll be part of one lot that we will not disturb. That'll be part of the conservation easement. And the lots that are on the private drive are up in this area. So they'll be, yeah, okay. So they'll be coming on over there. And they, actually, that area where the driveway is also is part of a little farm access road that comes up through there. As is this area where our main road is where the, the farmers can come out through there and access the field. So there are, we had mentioned before, there are several wetlands, and actually all along this creek is in a wetland area. There's a large wetland, Army Corps wetland area that runs all the way back through off our site and follows the creek down through. There's another little pocket wetland over in this corner that comes in because there's a small flow of water coming through there. So we have had that all delineated, and we are aware, and it was mentioned in the town engineer comments, we're aware of the new, I guess, DEC regulations that are requiring everyone to request a new delineation to see if there's any DEC jurisdiction. We've talked to our wetland people, and they didn't feel it was an issue, but we have submitted a request for the DEC to give us a delineation, so, that we're waiting on. So as far as the dedicated road where we cross the channel, we're going to be putting a 3-sided box culvert, precast box culvert in there. So it'll be on footers that'll be on either side of the channel, so we won't disturb the bottom, and we will be able to allow the flow to continue undisturbed, and we feel this will be something that'll pass by the Army Corps fairly easily, because that's a type of structure they like. So I guess the one issue that came up at the last meeting is with our 4 lots on a private drive. That is one more lot than is normally allowed, so we'd have to ask the board to approve the 4 lots on a private drive. And also those lots would also be flag lots that would just have strips out to the main dedicated road, which would allow them to be legal, but they'd be only 15 foot wide out at the road. So they'd have access to the dedicated road. So we also have been out there doing perk tests in the past. And the one thing that has changed is on lots 3 through 6, we moved the leach field from back of those lots. They were just over the top of the knoll there, and we moved them to the front of the houses. So we still have to go back out and re-perk those, even though the perks in the back were fine, good, so we expect they're going to be okay. And the soil all through the site has been good. We've got good perks, but so we will have to finish the grading around those leach fields once we get those perks done. So that's one thing that'll still have to be finished. So as far as the stormwater management and meeting the DEC requirements on that, we planned 3 or 4 different little ponds and bio areas that'll handle the runoff, manage the water quantity, water quality. We will have to meet the DEC regulations. We will, in the town regulations, and that'll be all scrutinized, and we'll submit that and receive a permit before we start. I guess I have received the comments from the town engineer, the staff. We reviewed those. I don't see anything that we can't address, and I expect our next submission to the board will address all those comments. I guess I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. As you know, or probably understand this evening, we are just looking at our lead agency coordination. We don't have any kind of preliminary plan review approvals this evening, but this is still open to the public. I guess what I'd like to do is open it up to the board for questions.
I guess the one question I have at the current time is, what's the purpose of the 10-foot strips to go on to
Private.
Timberview Pass?
From the lots,
Yeah,
as far as making them flag lots,
yeah, I mean, they front on Klein Road, which would be, I think, meet town code.
It's town of Farmington parcel, maybe Wes, if you want to,
Yeah, this can
Clarify
get,
that.
this will get a little bit complicated, because so we did have a comment in our letter dated March 7th that talked about lot frontage, and it was comment number 5. So it was proposed lots 17, 18, 19, and 20 don't have the minimum lot frontage requirement on a public highway that's required by Schedule 2 of Chapter 211 of the Victortown Code, which indicates that you need 100 feet of lot frontage on a public roadway.
And
So,
a 10-foot wouldn't,
so
accommodate
10 or
that.
15 feet wouldn't accommodate that. So either an area variance would need to be sought or redesign would be necessary. So I do recall, though, there being some conversation prior to the preliminary application being filed about possibly submitting the project as a clustered subdivision under Article 278, New York State Town Law 278. But based on what we're seeing in the proposed design, I'm not sure that the planning board would find that this would be a clustered subdivision versus a conventional subdivision. What I'm seeing as a reviewer is that this project appears to be a conventional subdivision where the lots are not clustered, but I would defer to the planning board on that.
yeah. I also
So
agree.
there's some conversation I think that needs to be had with regard to that and some of the geological features or characteristics of the site, and we can get into that a little bit deeper later.
Yeah, you're talking about during our secret review?
Well, not only
Yeah.
secret review, but also, listening to the public's comments and,
Yeah, okay. And the geologic features specifically that you're referring to, I think, Wes, is the drumlin formation right here on the border between the two towns that these 4 houses are sitting on. And then the road would be put right on top of, it looks like, or right close to the top of the ridge. So,
our point was to make those lots legal, was to create a connection to the dedicated road. And I think the discussion on cluster was talked about from what I read in the minutes, at the last meeting, where we could come in with a cluster-type development, but with this, the type of houses that Mr. Paladera sells, and probably smaller lots would not, which is usually what happens when you do a cluster. You do smaller lots and create all open area. And we felt, based on the type of home he built, you would want to have larger lots, and something like this would be more desirable.
so you
And
wouldn't
if
have
we-
you wouldn't have a clustered subdivision revision even on the table.
Right, and if we came in with a
Future.
standard layout, this would probably be it. So we could come back in with smaller lots and
Well,
open area,
you'd
I
have
guess.
to, this wouldn't be it because these 4
Oh,
these
correct.
lots would not have the proper access to town dedicated road. So, that's,
that was my
that's the
primary
comment, yeah.
concern with the
Okay.
preliminary layout that
Okay.
was proposed here.
but it's also part of the town code that we are looking at preserving geologic features as well. And we'll have to get into that, I think, too. But
I mean, another alternative would be to eliminate the 4 lots.
up on top.
Up on top.
Yeah, right. So, okay. Scott, comments?
Related to that, I see the 4 lots, but it also looks like they're spurring off additional home sites from the 4 lots, at least at the point that I'm looking at. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4,
So is there a plan to put
6.
4 more houses on the Farmington lots?
That was, as a preliminary look, we obviously have not gone into them for those approvals, but those are shown, yeah,
Yeah, so that would
as
then
future.
restrict the ability to have that
And we don't have
frontage
approvals.
onto the Klein Road from these lots directly, if you weren't going to include that land on those parcels, what was it, these 4? So,
Well, I mean, I think that relates to your conversation. You know, over the years, I have seen,
You're speaking into the mic.
sorry, over the years, I have seen plats done this way with the flag poles, I'll call them, that extend out to the right-of-way, just so there is technically legally public access or access to a public right-of-way. And many towns and villages feel that's important. Other times I've seen it interpreted where the private common drive, if you will, is considered by the planning board to be effectively a right-of-way, and that it doesn't really matter. So there are various interpretations to that. And then I guess thirdly, I've seen when a cluster subdivision is approved, or that status is approved, then dimensions are all at the discretion of the planning board, and it goes away under that situation. But I noticed that there were just more than 4 homes potentially pulling off of that common driveway, which you know, would cause one to question the status of whether a private common drive is the right call for that, or whether something dedicated would be better.
Or a private road.
Yeah, I guess if we're calling private road common drive.
Well, the private driveways, I guess, different requirements than a private road. I think we saw that on an earlier
Okay.
proposal, but comment is certainly well noted.
And I guess, in just looking at a couple of things here, I'm trying to get a handle on how the stormwater is being controlled, but maybe that'll be a little more evident on the next generation of plans. What I do notice is there's a single pond on lot 24. Seems to be extremely close to the leach field. You might want to take a look at that. Another item that I noticed was in the details, there was a split median entrance detail shown, but I don't see a split median on the first sheet, one of 9, I guess it is, or one of, whatever it is, the first sheet here. So those are just a couple of things that jumped out at me, but I think you said it's like a 74-acre site, and it all seems to be draining to the north, and it follows like a drainage way in that direction. Would seem to be
Yeah,
very
so it
challenging.
Follows the natural creek flow is over towards Klein Road. So when there's a culvert under Klein Road, so we have our, the roadway generally follows that same path out towards, or the same slope out towards Klein Road, but then we have storm sewers in the road with catch basins, manholes, to control, to handle the road drainage, and then each, at different spots along the way, that storm sewer picking up impervious area from the homes and the roadway will go into ponds to, handle water quality and quantity.
Yeah, I see the 3 blue colors up there.
Right.
It seems,
Is here.
proportionally, it seems small to me, but that's just my perception. Where are the wetlands relative to that drawing there?
Where is what?
Where are the wetlands that you spoke about? Are they in the dark green area, or?
Well, let me see if I can get this working again. Okay, so this area where the open channel or little creek comes in from off-site, that whole area is wetland through there. And then there's another little pocket over here.
A pretty good sized pond in the barn, or in the woods, down there in the lower left-hand corner. Right, in the
Down in here.
Over here.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, I don't think I have any more questions.
Ernie?
No, I was going to ask about wetlands too, but been answered.
Okay, I guess we'll have to see as we get more detail about the wetland extents, the buffer zones. Looks like some of the houses are pretty close to that drainage way, creek. And questionable whether you've got enough, whether you're far enough away from the wetlands that would be mapped through there that you can place houses where you've shown them. So I'd be concerned about that.
Yeah, I mean, we recognize we can slide some houses around in some of the leach fields on the lots to make sure we meet those minimum distances, for sure.
Okay. Wes, any comments? addition to what you had?
I'd be happy to go through some of our comments, and one of the things that I think we might want to do, or the planning board might want to do, is to just back up a little bit and start from the beginning and look at the existing conditions of the site. Specifically, I'll bring up just want to look at the topography here. We've mentioned it already. Susie, would you mind switching the screen to my laptop? Thanks. And some of this stuff would probably comes out in the applicant's design plans. But I've got here a copy of the topographic map, and you can see up here is Bortle Road. You see Klein Road here as it bends out into Farmington. The municipal boundary is about right in that area. Blasey Road here. And so this is the development seems to be coming in this area, right? What they're proposing. You've got two drumlins. You got this drumlin here, this pretty large drumlin. Then here's another drumlin here. And this might be characterized as a drumlin, but also maybe as a cane. It doesn't have the blunt end that you would see with the tighter contours up in this area. It's more of an oval, still a geological formation, provided, deposited probably by the glaciers. Still a topographic feature that seems to be recognized as a valuable characteristic of the town of Victor. So I've got that graphic, and then also I was going to show, here's just another example. Bortle Road is right here. You see Klein Road with the border of Farmington here. So you can see there was one drumlin here. There's this larger drumlin over here, and then this kind of drumlin cane feature that the applicant is proposing to potentially construct on there. And I also want to show this Google Earth feature. So what I've got here is you've got, right, you see the project parcel and the agricultural fields, and you can see the stream coming down here, the road, and then I can just add the topographic contours, which are 1 foot contours, and it just gives you an idea of the change in elevation and topography. And you can really, I tilt the screen here a little bit and zoom in. It gives a little bit of a flavor for what's going on with the topography.
So Wes, that feature that you're showing.
Yep.
You just rotated almost away from it, or where's Klein? Okay, so this is the drumlin where the feature that the four homes are setting on top of, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just trying to make sure everyone understands that. And that's honestly the feature in question that would be a geologic resource.
Yep.
We needed to look at more closely.
Yeah, and like you did bring up earlier, that's something that we would evaluate as part of the seeker process. But to the extent that the planning board might want to give some guidance to the applicant in terms of how this be developed or whether it be developed, we're there in the preliminary stage now where you can provide that sort of feedback.
Sure.
I don't know exactly where potentially the private drive might come up in this area where there seems to be an existing kind of access.
Yes, that's
Farm
the
access?
point in there where that existing driveway is.
Okay. And then, and that's in the town of Farmington, as you all probably recognize, right, this here. And so there'd be some utility work that I think the water line was going to come up that private drive.
Yes, it'd be water lines and, yeah.
And then maybe some small amount of storm sewer infrastructure as well in some area. I can't
And
remember.
really,
exactly.
our grading plan does not change that, impact the existing grade at all.
Yeah.
The leach fields obviously have to be on existing grade, and the driveway is within a foot of existing grade, so everything is, trying to blend in, as is the project, as our road comes into the low spot in between the two, the drumlin and this other feature, and then the lots basically fit into the ground, the existing terrain.
Yeah.
That was the way it's designed.
So we did notice, and this is in the town of Farmington, something that they'll need to address, is that the way the private drive comes down to Klein Road, it's pretty steep gradient within 100 feet of of Klein Road, and that may present some challenges, practical challenges for drivers. I'm not sure, and have you filed, just curious, have you filed a site plan application for any of the proposed work in the town of Farmington?
We have not filed a plan. We met
Okay.
with their planning board or their DRC. We
Yeah.
talked with them and we submitted these plans to them, but we haven't really
Okay.
started a process.
All right,
I mean, that was really the intent. Coming here, we wanted to get your input, start the process, make sure, we had everything, going, and then, we hope to finalize it soon, but once we know that the process is good with you folks, we'll, move forwards with them. And probably this phase, or this section would be a second phase. Our hope is to get the first dedicated road in and start getting all that work done. This would be, we realize it'll take a little bit of time to coordinate between the two municipalities, but, it's just,
So that begs the question, do those other potential homes in Farmington, is it your intent to tie into this private road or private driveway?
possibly. I mean, they could come off of Klein Road. They could run on Klein Road also, but,
Because generally speaking, Farmington is pretty strict about having more than one home per driveway. I mean, you may run into that problem as well. So, and that would mean that we'd be looking at 8 homes on a private road instead of 3. And then 4 would be the minimum variance that sounds like you'd be requesting. But, and there's a lot of coordination here that is right now beyond this conversation, I think, about that driveway in particular. So, and I think you're going to have to put some more serious thought into how you want to tackle that. Because I'm not thinking that we can approve 4 homes and then just someday you just tie in with 4 more homes to the same driveway without that coming before the board. So,
we would have to come back for that, or, anyway, right?
I could not say you should plan on tying into this driveway without first getting that
Yeah.
approval from this board to have more than 4 homes on this driveway before you get our approval on this section of the subdivision.
Right.
That's my initial impression and advice. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Makes
anybody
sense.
else has a comment or would want to weigh into that, but,
I agree.
it's good to, I appreciate that you're looking down the road for, no pun intended, for a few additional homes here, but we're already dealing with a variance for 4 homes, not 3. So,
just to build a little bit more, not to belabor the item on existing conditions, I pulled up the town's natural resource inventory. And this particular map shows unique landforms and views, and I'll just zoom into this area again. So you'll see that there's this number 8 here. So number 7 was at large drumlin. Number 8 is another drumlin, and there's a view of some drumlins here. The project area is more in this location, outside of either of these yellow lines, it appears. However, I just wanted to bring up the next page, which just, let's see if I can get there. It just describes what that number 8 was. See if I can zoom in so people can see what I'm talking about. So number 7 and 8, the drumlins south of Bortle Road, east of Blasey, drumlins northeast of the thruway between County Road 9 and Town Boundary in Victor Farmington. And lastly, to go with that, in our comment letter, we did identify comment number 28 about the EAF, the natural resources on or near the site, and that we included a depiction of what's on the EAF mapper. The New York State DEC EAF mapper identifies a unique geologic feature. The Gillis Road, Hamlet of Brownsville. The description says New York's world famous drumlin field. I don't know how accurate that is, but I think it just recognizes there are drumlins in the vicinity. So.
okay. Well, that actually is pretty helpful in terms of identifying the feature that they're proposing to put 4 homes on that is not one of the more prominent drumlins, I guess,
Yeah.
and identified on that particular graphic. So,
Yep. So the applicant did touch on their submission to the New York State DEC to get a jurisdictional determination on the parcel and any wetlands, and the applicant did provide a wetland delineation. Some of these comments we've already gone over. We did talk about lot frontage for those lots, 17, 18, 19, and 20. A little bit more about the common driveway. We're looking for some details, more detailed information with the subdivision plan set itself and on a number of topics, site distance, stormwater management calculations, stormwater calculations, and also some calculations for the sizing of the culvert. And I do appreciate the applicant's engineer's characterization of the three-sided box culvert on footers that will probably address any Army Corps concerns potentially. But we are looking for some sizing calculations. And then, for example, there appeared to be numerous boxes that were, I don't know if they were inadvertently left blank or maybe the data is just not available yet on the perk tests and soil tests for the septic systems. So I think there's a lot more detailed information that we're going to need to be able to complete a thorough review of the application. But I guess I'll leave it at that for right now. A copy of LaBella's letter can be obtained from the county plan or the town's planning and building office, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Wes. As I said, this is a public hearing. It's open. While the action we're taking this evening is more as a designation or resolution to act as lead agency and for lead agency coordination. I will open up the floor to the public. If you have any comments as a general nature for now, there'll be more opportunities in the future if you wish to ask questions as we get into the preliminary plans. Try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Appreciate that. And come up, name, address, and don't be shy.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sue Charlin. I'm at 327 Klein Road. I do have a letter I'm just going to leave with you guys, but I'll just hit on a couple of the key points. I think you guys have already touched on all of my questions. Well, we're going to say welcome to the neighborhood, and we do have a few issues that we have identified and think, can be worked out, and we just hope that the town will work with the applicant to try to work through some of these issues and, make this work out for everybody. So the first thing, you guys already touched on the jurisdictional determination issue, which I think you're well aware of, has been catching a lot of developers off guard at this point, so they're aware of that, then great. But there's some other sort of larger issues related to that. A few years ago, there was a trench that was dug on that property and subsequently sort of drained that wetland. And that led to pretty much an ongoing erosion sedimentation issue. That creek is really a tributary to Garnagua Creek. And so since then, there's been sedimentation flowing under the road and into the creek. We've noticed during rain events and during the ice melt. And I guess we're hoping that that's something that can be addressed as part of this proposal, is to try to clear up that issue, maybe even enhance that, restore it to what it was before the trench
Could you
was dug.
speak up, please? I can barely hear you.
Oh, would you like me to start it? Well, I'll just repeat the last sentence there, that our hope is that as part of this application, that I guess stormwater situation can be restored to what it was before the trench was dug on the property. That's really the main point of that, but I've got that written in here too.
And written comments are always appreciated and
Yes.
certainly reviewed, so that helps us understand your position.
Yes. The other thing I just had a note about was dark sky lighting. I know that you guys have a dark sky lighting code And just wanted to make sure that that's something that is hopefully addressed and incorporated into this application. And the last thing you just touched on has to do with the property that's in Farmington, that is part of a drumlin or some sort of formation. That's actually a really steep slope, and I don't know the status of that, but I last heard that that was deemed not developable in the town of Farmington. I don't know if that's still the case, and I have no official documentation of that, but it would be something to look into. And there is a fairly significant stand of mature trees, and I would just hope that there might be a way for the applicant to keep that buffer of trees between the development and Klein Road, if at all possible. If you go out there and drive down Klein Road, you'll see it's a really steep slope. I can't imagine a driveway being able to access the property from Klein Road, just because it would have to begin like 300 feet south in order to make that grade work. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but that would be my assessment of that. Anyway, that's it. That's my 5 minutes. Really appreciate your time from you and the applicant, and
Actually, all you had was 3 minutes.
You had 3 minutes, but fine, that's fine. That's all right.
Can you show us the area on the map that was disturbed, as best you know it?
Is there can you show the aerial again? Or is,
I think like right in here.
well, right along
didn't-
the creek itself or next to the creek?
I don't know the exact
Okay.
location. I know we heard earthwork out there, went over to see. But I think it was, generally in the area where that tributary is located. If I'm incorrect and the applicant wants to correct me, that's, I totally understand that, but.
Well, I know that the town is, and the building code is also pretty strict about stormwater pollution, and when you have an active construction site, as this will be, it certainly will encompass that area that you're talking about and will need to be mitigated during construction whenever that takes place.
Right.
So-
And that's really our hope, is that we know that that's perfectly possible to do and that they're capable of doing it. I just wanted to put it on your radar.
Okay,
So appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you. Sure.
My name is Mauro Polidori and Ferry, the developer. The only thing that I know of is my son went out there one day, a year or two ago, and made a little shooting range into the hillside.
So you're thinking that's the
And I don't
disturbed
know if he
area?
brought a bobcat there to clear a little bit of scrub, but it was
That's not what it was?
Just,
Oh,
Hang on.
know about that.
Oh.
This is about.
and I just wanted to add.
And make sure that you're on the microphone so Lisa can get all this
This is
conversation.
Bob Winans back again. Just to add, this is all currently farmed, so it's stripped, and there could be runoff from the farm field. And as you mentioned, we are held to a pretty high standard once we start construction between controlling sediment, silt runoff. We're not supposed to allow a drop of sediment to leave our site. So just let's clarify
Okay.
that.
Thanks, Bob. Anyone else here would wish to comment? Question? Good
How you
evening.
doing? Fred Armstrong, 319 Klein Road. Just a couple comments or thoughts. Sue addressed a lot of them, and that's very helpful. I was concerned about light pollution, but apparently there are already things on the books for dealing with that. I am concerned about access to the road. I live right across the street. It's a 55-mile-an-hour road, and
There's a laser there. If you
Yeah.
want to point out just in
Sure.
general where you live,
I can't.
just don't look at it.
So I live,
Right there, last house, Fred.
What's that, right there?
Right there,
Yeah,
yep.
so that's my property here.
Okay.
Curve of the road, it does slow down, but it's 55. And if I understand where they're talking about having access to the, to the development,
Right about there.
Yeah, it's right on before the curve of the road, and it's just, I'm concerned, 24 houses, it's gonna be a lot of traffic. There is a huge incline, there is a huge incline all along here. I certainly understand homes here, these just don't make sense to me. They're gonna be right on top of this smaller drumlin, and if there have to be separate driveways into there, I just don't see how it could be. If you ever drove down that road, it's pretty steep, so, if I'm understanding, all of the homes will have their own septic systems, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any concern about, and I'm not an engineer, this is all new to me, but, you know, if my home is here, our homes are here, and there is this huge drumlin, small drumlin, do those leach fields come down onto our property? You know, the runoff from that?
You shouldn't be getting runoff from active leachate, I guess. It's more evaporation, not the engineer either, but certainly something that we look at on different
Okay,
you know,
yeah, I
sites.
just want you to be aware of that.
Yeah,
And I'm not an engineer, I have an animation studio, I make cartoons, I don't build homes. But, what's that?
Same thing.
As far as, is this, all the homes gonna have electric heating, or are they gonna put gas in? There's no gas on our road.
well, then they won't have gas heating.
Okay, all right, well, so they'll all be electric? Okay.
Propane, it could be propane,
Okay,
yeah.
but, yeah, so you're not planning on putting gas in for the homes?
Wouldn't be us doing that planning. If the developer sought to bring a gas line from a mile away,
Mhm.
that's very expensive, but
Yeah.
you would have to
Okay.
work that all out and pay for it and everything else.
Right. All right, I guess that's about it. I just wanted to, I had a few questions, and,
Mhm.
yeah.
Appreciate it. You'll have the chance to see more. as this-
The road along here and access to the road there would be, as far as I'm concerned, would be a nightmare. It would
Oh,
be-
The
it'd be
engineers,
dangerous.
yeah, we do evaluate site distance, road speed, et cetera, as it applies to the
Yeah,
entrances of
yeah.
each subdivision and driveway.
Right.
So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Anyone else?
Good evening, Neil Stegeson, 343 Klein Road. I will work on getting a comment letter printed out. We just got the postcard yesterday, so we're kind of in a scramble. So I guess my first question, is this hearing going to be continued for the preliminary review?
Yes.
So is tonight's just for the secret determination?
This is for lead agency coordination.
Okay.
Doesn't even start seeker yet.
Okay. So it's not even necessarily to close that review out?
Correct. We're not
Okay.
closing this public hearing.
Okay, so I'll work on getting my comments and submitting it, but for tonight's meeting, my understanding is that the Town of Victor's Code 184-12.B.2.C states in part that plats need to comply with the incorporate the recommendations of the town's comprehensive plan. Now, as a planner, I can appreciate the complexity of looking at a regulation document versus a plan document. However, given that it's in your subdivision codes, there is that nexus. So most of my comments here tonight are related to the comp plan. The subdivision, as proposed, appears to disregard several town policies and objectives. Under the growth management and community character element, strategy 3, there's a policy to preserve and set aside land, particularly steep slopes, from development. This proposal would remove existing mature vegetation, grade and excavate significant portions of steep slopes on the drumlin. And I appreciate there's maybe some confusion or regarding whether that's a drumlin or not for the town of Victor. It appears that for the town of Farmington, they do recognize it as a drumlin, so maybe there's some communication that could be had there. Regardless, we do recognize that they are steep slopes. Under the community development element, there is a policy to protect open space in subdivisions, again, particularly for steep slopes, and to require all developments to be designed to use conservation subdivision principles. Part of the review should be a slope analysis together with a geotechnical engineer report should the town move forward to approve or consider approving the development on that steep slope in the drumlin. Hopefully this will ensure that the unconsolidated fill of the drumlin together with proposed construction will be soundly engineered for the safety and well-being of the community. Goal C of that policy also particularly calls out for the preservation of existing trees and natural features as development, including topography. The drumlin acts as a wildlife corridor to Gunnerga Creek. There are deer, fox, coyote, hawk, eagle, all utilize the natural resources of that area to access the creek, and we have creatures all the time going down the creek, across the road, down to Gunnerga Creek. The proposal, as it's currently laid out, would negatively impact those animals. The town's recreation plan notes that this area of town is expected to be the second largest growth area of parkland, and parkland obtained from new development is in the best interest of the town. It notes the town should strive for increased pedestrian activity in new subdivisions and promote and/or require access in new developments. A policy states a subdivision requirement of impact fees and/or donation of land from subdivision developers for recreational purposes. It notes several parks, including the Village of the Park, has steep sloped areas, including drumlins, that are now reserved in parklands. We request the proposal be reviewed by the Park and Recreation Director and the Parks and Recreation Citizen Advisory Committee for the entire drumlin area to be set aside and attract in perpetuity for recreational purposes. The transportation element, strategy number 10, notes a policy to reduce superfluous curb cuts. The subdivision as proposed would increase the curb cuts on Klein Road to 5 when it could easily be redesigned with 1. The section of the road is heavily used by bicyclists, joggers, people walking their dogs, and the road has a speed limit, as previously noted by another commenter, of 55. The people readily speed through that area, and all the access is mostly in that S-curve, which has reduced visibility. Requiring all the lots proposed to access from a single curb cut and reducing unneeded curb cuts is in the best interest of the community. Town Victor Code also 184-12.3.d states in part that the board shall provide comments concerning the design of the proposed subdivision, as well as suggestions as to coordination of the design of adjacent subdivisions and compliance with the required affected public agencies, including the town of Farmington. So we would like to ensure that the town of Farmington is in coordination with the town of Victor on this, including seeker. Under New York State seeker law, the environmental review and assessment of project cannot be bifurcated, meaning even though the project is going to be phased out over time, and even though it straddles subdivision or municipal boundaries, the review must be reviewed by both the town and town of Victor and the town of Farmington comprehensively. It cannot be separated. The FEF also has several omissions or errors. It does not indicate the presence of the drumlin as a unique geological feature, does not recognize state DEC wetlands, and it does not recognize agricultural farmland. We want to ensure we are not anti-development and understand the complexity and the need for increased housing, especially affordable housing in New York, even at the risk of losing valuable agricultural lands in an agricultural district. We suggest the board require a cluster sub or seriously consider a cluster sub to focus most of the development away from the wetlands, create a corridor across the drumlin, preserve the drumlin, and we can appreciate that the developer doesn't necessarily want to have small lots and would rather have large lots, large houses, but this is for the betterment of the community for a very significant time period moving forward. Thank you for your time and your consideration to ensure the best development for all members of the community.
Could you restate your name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch it in the beginning.
Niels Tiggeson?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you print that out and send it to our secretary?
Yes.
Scott Reinhardt, 7342 Dreier Road, Victor Hiking Trails. We reviewed this project with Parks and Recreation, and we have, for those in the room that who live in the northeast section of Victor, they might not know much about us because most of our trails, we have 70 miles of trails that are in other sections of Victor. And we would very much like to, according to, in line with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we would like to install trails in that section of Victor. And we see an opportunity here, and we work with developers, we install trails, and we would like the same benefit for the people who live up there. So if this project moves forward, we would like to work with the developer in installing a trail, and possibly even look like connecting it to the Mary Frances Bluebird Park.
So Scott, do you have trails that are in the vicinity, or would this be like a first foray into that part of the town?
It would be a first. I think the closest one is Helen's Way and Monkey Run, but I wouldn't consider that to be in that region. There are certain areas of Victor that don't have any trails, and there's other areas that have plenty of trails, and we have extensive use. We put trail counters out, and we found out that Victor residents, and I know they get counted, well, we had 136,000 people last year use the trails. So they're extensively used, they're multi-use trails. You can hike, you can walk, you can ride your bike. So we would like to provide the same kind of opportunities for that region.
Okay.
Okay,
Scott?
thanks.
Anyone else? Like I said, I'm not closing the public hearing this evening, so you'll have an opportunity in the future. If you're hesitating at all, don't worry about it. Come on up. So, and if you have comments that you don't wish to get up front before the board, but you would wish us to address, please send a letter in to the town planning board. So, yes.
Could I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
Just, I thought about it, and I didn't really point that out, but on our color rendering, the area in the dark green is all area that we would have in a conservation easement, and that would be our proposal to create our 50% open space. So that's 37 acres plus. That will all be in that green area that would be in conservation easement that we would not disturb. And even if homeowners purchased the whole lots, and like the one homeowner that gets the lot with 10 acres of the drumlin in the back on the northwest side, I can put that. Will be in a conservation easement, so it'll be protected, and as will all the other areas in the wetlands and in those high areas. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thanks. So unless there's any other questions or comments from the board? Anything from you, Wes? Or are we on? Okay, so as I said this evening, we're just addressing lead agency coordination. So this gives opportunity for municipalities and interested or involved agencies that may wish to participate, to let them know that we will be lead agency, or that's our intent. And once that period is up, from given the opportunity to respond, then we can move forward with our review. So with that, for application 01 PS 2025, whereas on or about February 4th, 2025, Secretary of the Town Planning Board received the preliminary subdivision application entitled Timberview Estates Subdivision, proposed at Klein Road, and whereas intent of Polidori and Ferry Custom Homes to develop a 74.5 acre parcel into 24 lots located along Klein Road, approximately 1,250 feet south of the Bortle Road, within the R2 zoning district, within the residential A overlay district, affording 0.33 units per acre or 3 acres per unit minimum for sale townhome units on, I would say home, I don't think it's townhome, single-family units, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think Merle wanted townhomes. On an 18.5 acre parcel, and whereas, yeah, that 18.5 should be the,
I think it needs to stop at 0.33 units.
per acre, period, all right. Yes, you're right, it was a, okay, so the last, right after the word acre, that rest of that paragraph gets struck. Whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board preliminarily classifies the project as Type 1 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the Planning Board, as an involved agency, has identified the following additional involved agencies and associated approvals decisions for which lead agency coordination must be conducted. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, New York State Department of Health, the Town of Farmington, Town of Victor Town Board, and the Monroe County Water Authority. Whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board intends to proceed with coordinated review as required for Type 1 actions, and a lead agency must be established prior to making a determination of significance. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Victor Planning Board declares its intent to act as lead agency and directs the Planning Board Secretary to mail the EAF with Part 1 completed by the project sponsor and a copy of the subdivision application to all identified, involved, and interested agencies, notifying them that a lead agency must be agreed upon within 30 calendar days of the date of the Environmental Assessment Form, EAF, was mailed to them, expressing the Town Planning Board's intent to act as lead agency. Notification will be sent to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the New York State Department of Health, Town of Farmington, Town of Victor Town Board, and Monroe County Water Authority. The Ontario County Planning Board Department and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation will also be notified of the pending application as interested agencies. That's the resolution. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
I'll second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for residents for coming this evening and voicing your questions and comments, and we look forward to hearing from you some more. With that, I believe that's the agenda this evening. Anything else, Lisa? Wes?
Nope.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Scott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone.